Hey, what's up, guys? So this is in response to some of the comments I received on my last video where I talked about uh, the fact that I vote Democrat, and I know it shocked a lot of people. Um, it's because I don't identify as being a Democrat, um, and the reality is I agree with a lot of areas on the Republican side and Democrat. And I know people might say, oh, you're being like, you're on the fence. No, I'm a human being. And I have a background in accounting. So I studied a lot about the economy. So there's basically everything about the economy I agree with on the Republican side. Um, and I think on the Democrat side, I think it's very careless what what we're doing economically. Um, and it's like that. So like it's like certain topics are nuanced, and I think that's how it should be. I don't think it should be like pick a side, man. And that's just how I see it. I'm not gonna identify with any side because identity, as I talk about a lot on this channel, is extremely important. It shapes who you are as an individual. It shapes what you emotionally identify with. And that leads to an intense reaction. For example, if I clung onto the fact that, you know, um, me and certain family members aren't talking anymore, and I get so emotional about that idea, and I keep reiterating it, and I keep diving into the thoughts about the people I've lost that I had to let go because they were making bad decisions, I'd be an emotional wreck right now. But I've learned to let it go. I don't identify with the fact that I had to let them go. They made horrible decisions. You know, uh, they they their decisions are so toxic that they were basically trying to bring down my family inadvertently. It wasn't even intentional. It was just they were bringing so much craziness that they were literally bringing down my family. And it's like I had to make a decision. And I'm not emotional about it. I can't identify with it. Every time my mind tries to go there, I meditate, I reel it back into the present, and I say, they're gone now, let it go. I have a visualization technique I use to let go of people I have to let go. And if you guys want to know about, I think I made a video on it. I know that once I intensely identify with anything, Democrat, Republican, whether I'm pro this, pro that, that will compound over time and it'll become more intense, and I'll basically become an extremist later on in life, if I don't become more mindful of it. So I'm very careful as to what I identify with. Um, that's why I'm confidently, I can say without a doubt, I identify as being a business owner, an entrepreneur, while also being a dad, a family person. So by having those two um, things I identify with, being a dad, being a husband, and being an entrepreneur, those things will both take my attention. So for example, I could be this maniacal business person who just business consumes them, and I'll step on anybody and ignore my family. But because I identify as being a family person, it'll take me away from business in a healthy way and put the attention on my family. And because I identify with business, I won't be too consumed with family at the same time. And, so I'm going back and forth. And those are the only things I really try to identify with. Probably being a spiritual person, someone who believes in a higher intelligence, higher being, and that's where the religious piece comes in. That's where I can relate to people who are, Christians, because I don't disagree with the fact that there is a higher being, there is a higher intelligence. I really believe that. Because if you look at a tree, it fractals. So you start off as a small seed, it grows into a plant, but it always bifurcates into two, and then it just copies its form. And I feel like intelligence is the same way. I feel like our beingness is a smaller form, a fractal of some greater intelligence, greater form of consciousness. And some people call it God, some people call it Allah, you know what I'm saying? So some people say it's the universe, right? And I can just see it. I don't know. When I meditate, it just keeps reoccurring, and that's what I believe. So, but I also have the skeptical mind, right? So I'm like, all right, which religion is it? Is it even religion? Is it spirituality? What does science say, right? And so my skeptical mind reverts to science. But then I try not to lean too much into science, because if you lean too much into science, that in and of itself becomes a religion. And so I pull back from science a little bit. So see what I'm saying? I don't know, man. Maybe I just play the feds too much in life, but I don't know. I feel like we got one life, and you know, I feel like identifying too much in a particular way limits your perspective, and so you'll never understand anything in its entirety if you dive too much in one direction. So I don't know. Maybe that's wrong. Maybe that's the way to live. I don't know. That's the way I do it. I guess in the comments you can tell me what you believe in as far as that goes. But that's how I see it. Plus, when my son was born, man, there were all the synchronicities, all the things that perfectly lined up that made no damn sense, that science logic could not explain, but lined up perfectly. And so that's another thing, man. It's just it's crazy. Like, people who just are completely all about science. I believe in what Kierkegaard talked about, and I'm dropping a video on that so you'll understand it if you don't already. Is that at a certain point in your life, you're either diving into rational thinking completely, and because of that, you don't believe in anything greater, and so you'll always kind of be a nihilist in a certain way, and you'll always have a kind of like bitter, cold take on reality. Or you dive into faith, take a leap of faith, and you say, nah, there's something greater, there's something intelligent. And that's also basically saying how limited you are. It's you being humble. It's you saying you don't know and trusting something else. And I lean more in that direction. You know, I've taken the leap of faith in life, and so that's the direction I lean in. And yeah, it's not rational. It's not scientific, which kind of shocks me, right? Because I went to school, you know, I got my degrees and all that. And so, you know, I tend to take, and it's in finance. So it's like I have that rigid thinking. But as far as believing in something greater, having faith, that's the direction I chose. I took the leap of faith. And it all had to do with my son being born, and how the synchronicities lined up like crazy when he was born. But yeah, anyway, I think that's all I have to say. All right, guys. Hey, take it easy. Peace.